Taoiseach, it's late afternoon yesterday, and the reports of a draft text of a British withdrawal treaty. There's been rumours, counter-rumours, statements of support, and the usual statements of defiance, even though the document has yet to be published. I gather there are over 400 pages in this document, and we appreciate on this side of the House that it is necessary to give the UK Cabinet space to consider this document and the findings of this document this afternoon, and particularly given your newfound interest, indeed dramatising the relationship between here and the UK, we do understand that you are possibly constrained in what you will be able to say. However, these should be very clear. My party considers this document as important for the island of Ireland as it is for the United Kingdom and as it is for the European Union. And we expect that this Oireachtas will be given the same opportunities as the Parliament in both those jurisdictions to discuss and scrutinise this agreement when it is fully available. This document is a seminal one in the history of this island, and this Oireachtas should have the power and the capability to scrutinise it on that basis. We need to scrutinise it because it affects not just economic issues, but every aspect nearly of our day-to-day life on this island. Not just the backstop for Northern Ireland and the United Kingdom, trade, economic, social and civic issues. I think everyone in this House wants a deal. It is in the interest of the island of Ireland, it is in the interest of the United Kingdom and the interest of the European Union to get a deal. Every business owner looking at us today, every farmer looking at us today and every worker looking in today want a deal that protects trade, that protects our relationships on an east-west basis and on a north-south basis. Nobody wants a border between the north and south, not even the DUP, and nobody wants a no-deal Brexit scenario. I appreciate you can't speculate on the detail of the draft, but I want you to comment on a number of principles. Can you confirm that the Good Friday Agreement, as is currently standard, will not be negatively impacted if this draft withdrawal agreement is ratified? In the case it's reported that there will be a further extended transition period after the formal withdrawal period concludes, the UK would still be a full member of the EU for the next 2 years. And what are the principles guiding the relationship after that? Finally, Taoiseach, when will a copy of the draft withdrawal agreement be made available to members of this House on all sides so that we can scrutinise it and begin a process of debating a Concorder disagreement which is so important for Ireland?
Thank you very much, Deputy, and I do appreciate your forbearance on this issue and your understanding as to why I may not be in a position to answer questions in the level of detail that I might like to. And I've been in touch with your party leader this morning just on that issue and around that point. We do have a very important and a very sensitive Cabinet meeting that will happen in London starting at 2 o'clock today, and I don't want to say anything here today that might upend that Cabinet meeting, make things any more difficult than they are already for the Prime Minister, and I know that you won't want to put me in a position where I have to do that. What I can say at the outset, once again, is that Brexit is not our policy. Brexit is not going to be good for Ireland. The best case scenario for Ireland would be for the United Kingdom to remain in the European Union, but that is not a matter for us. That is a matter for the British people, a matter for the British Parliament, and they've made their decision, and we must respect it. So our objective from day one has been to minimise any harm to Ireland and Northern Ireland and to maximise any opportunities that may arise. And our strategy from day one was to be European, to be very much one of the 27, to be indivisible from the other 27 member states, to ensure that the European Union understood our concerns and our vital national interest, and to make sure that our concerns and our vital national interest became European concerns and European interests. And I really feel that Michel Barnier and his task force and his team have very much taken that on board, as have my colleagues in the European Council, the Commission and the European Parliament. So back in December, when the joint report, the agreement between the EU and the UK was issued, I said that the next step was to turn that joint report that we agreed back in December into a legally binding and legally operable withdrawal agreement. And we are close to that point today. But it is still a draft agreement. It is yet to be agreed by the UK Government, and they will discuss that this afternoon, and is yet to be agreed by the European Council. And we may be in a position to have an emergency European Council meeting before the end of the month to do exactly that. In terms of your questions, my reading is that the Good Friday Agreement is not negatively impacted by this. In fact, it is protected by this, by the draft agreement. And in relation to the transition period, and I think you asked about the transition period is envisaged to run from the end of May next year until the end of 2020, with the possibility of time-limited extension of the transition period. But during the transition period, the United Kingdom would not be a member of the European Union, but essentially the rules and regulations and so on and the acquis would apply, thus giving business and citizens time to prepare for any permanent changes that may take place, and more importantly giving us time during that transition period to negotiate the future relationship between the EU and the UK around trade and around security.
Thank you. Taoiseach, can you confirm that the agreement will be made available to this House and that there will be a vigorous debate in this House? Secondly, as you said, we've had 12 months of discussion around last year's agreement, and within that discussion there was tortuous interpretation of language, and language in London meant something completely different in Dublin, and vice versa, and also in Brussels. Is the language in this agreement watertight, that it will not be subject to another 12 or 24 months of interpretation and disagreement, and difficult disagreement between our nations? Secondly, could you give a guarantee that this agreement will be time-proof, that no matter who is Prime Minister, or indeed who is Taoiseach, that the commitments in this agreement will be honoured, no matter how long this agreement lasts for? And finally, Taoiseach, in the event of this agreement not being reached, particularly if it doesn't get through the Parliament, can you confirm that, in line with the contingency advice of the EU Commission about preparation for a no-deal Brexit, that you are satisfied that we are in a situation to deal with such a scenario?
My apologies, Deputy. I think I said that the transition period, implementation period, would kick in from the end of May next year. It's, of course, the end of March. If this agreement is made, it'll be an international treaty between the European Union and Ireland, including Ireland on the one hand, and the United Kingdom on the other. And therefore, being an international treaty, would continue to apply, even if there was a change of government here or a change of government in the United Kingdom. And that is the nature of such agreements. In terms of the process and the next steps, obviously a lot of things can go wrong today and over the next couple of days. But should the UK Cabinet be in a position this afternoon to say that it's content with the text, it is proposed that the Commission Task Force would be in a position, perhaps tonight, to publish the text, with the possibility or probability of an EU Council meeting around the 25th of November. The text would have to be ratified, as we all know, by Westminster and also by the European Parliament. But while it is not legally necessary, it is my strong view and the Cabinet's decision today that the text should also be put to a vote here in Dáil Éireann. And I can give that commitment this afternoon. I do appreciate that members will want to read the text, so we may need some flexibility around timing. And it's intended to offer briefings to all of the parties here this evening, if we're in a position to publish the text, give you time to read it. We've arranged for briefings with the Northern Ireland parties tomorrow morning, or at least those who wish to be part of that briefing tomorrow morning. And then, all things going to plan, to have a debate perhaps next week. And this can be agreed by the Business Committee, thus allowing everyone to have a chance to read this in full, think about it, and then have a vote in the Dáil on it as well.